They called it a judgment, but to humanity it was a betrayal. The Galactic Council's decision came without warning. One moment, Earth was a newly accepted member of the Council of 12, hopeful and proud. The next, it was stripped of its membership, denounced and exiled to the far edges of known space like an unruly child. No hearings, no debates, no second chances. Just a quiet transmission. You are hereby removed from the Galactic Accord. Leave this region within 72 hours. Back on Earth, disbelief rippled like thunder across continents. Scientists, politicians, soldiers, everyone demanded answers. But the Council offered none. Whispers spread fast. Some said it was jealousy. Others suspected fear. Humanity had grown fast, too fast. In just 2 centuries, they'd leapt ahead in biotechnology, quantum defense, and space-folding drives. The Council had monitored their progress, quietly, until that progress became a threat. At first, there was mourning. Earth's skies filled, with the last Council ships withdrawing from orbit, cutting ties. The few humans stationed in other galactic systems were escorted back under armed surveillance, treated like pariahs. Embassies were closed. Alliances dissolved. Trade routes evaporated overnight. What followed was silence. But humans are strange when cornered. They don't cower long. 3 months after exile, a new project was launched under the icy surface of Europa. Top minds, military strategists, and even once disgraced visionaries were gathered under one roof, Project Phoenix. The goal wasn't survival, it was transformation. By the end of the first year, they'd built the first of what would become the Titan-class star cruisers, ships unlike anything in the galaxy, not just weapons of war but colonies in motion, driven by a mix of dark energy manipulation and quantum foresight. Hidden in asteroid fields and cloaked nebulae, humans began to expand, secretly, purposefully, and far beyond the Council's reach. 10 years passed. Then 20. The rest of the galaxy forgot about Earth. But Earth hadn't forgotten them. And while their enemies watched other borders, humanity was busy building an empire, one that would stretch beyond charted stars, one that didn't ask for permission. Now in the shadow of a dying sun on the edge of the Perseus Arm, a Council envoy ship drifts into a trap it didn't know existed. Aboard that envoy ship is Tazar Ven, a diplomat from the Alari species, tall and golden-eyed, known for his cold precision and detachment. He carries with him sealed messages meant for a human outpost the Council believes still exists near the rim. A message of peace, or perhaps surveillance in disguise. He doesn't know the outpost he's searching for isn't a colony anymore. It's the capital of the new human dominion. He doesn't know they've already seen him coming. And watching from the control deck of the invisible cruiser circling that envoy ship is Admiral Celine Miles. She was barely 15 when Earth was exiled. Now she commands an armada larger than anything the Council has faced in 2,000 years. Her eyes, dark and still, scan the live feed of the envoy ship's approach. She gives no order. Not yet. Somewhere below deck, a young recruit named Keon Langley adjusts his gloves, staring at the viewport in silence. He's 19, quiet, thoughtful. The only child of a single mother who once told him, "If they ever try to erase you, build something so loud the universe has to listen." Keon doesn't know that the choice he'll make in the next few hours will shape the future of both empires. Meanwhile, on a transport ship far from the battlefield, a black teen named Jordan gives up his seat to a pregnant white woman struggling to stay balanced in the narrow aisle. The ship is old, groaning with rusted metal and flickering lights, a relic from Earth's forgotten days. She gasps slightly, clutching her belly, and he reaches out instinctively to help her sit. She thanks him with a tired smile and says nothing at first. But moments later she reaches into her coat and hands him a small sealed envelope, simple, white, and worn around the edges. He frowns. "What's this?" She doesn't answer directly. "You'll understand when the time's right." Jordan watches her as she turns away, confusion rising in his chest. The envelope feels heavier than it should. He slips it into his coat pocket, trying to ignore the strange sensation growing in his gut. But hours later, After that ship is intercepted by an unknown signal and rerouted into classified space, Jordan will open the envelope. And everything will change. Back on the flagship, Admiral Miles finally speaks. Begin Phase 1, no weapons, let them come in peace. Her voice is steady, but the silence in the command room is dense. We're really doing this? Someone whispers. She doesn't respond. Outside the ship's cloak, the envoy vessel slows, its engines humming as it prepares for final approach. It has no idea what waits behind that invisible wall of steel, mines, and vengeance. And from deep space, a beacon lights up in a forgotten sector, a signal the Council never meant to see again. The humans are back, and they never forgot. But before war there will be a choice, and it begins with a note. The silence in the command center was the kind that held weight. No alarms, no red lights, no sense of chaos, just stillness. Everyone was watching the envoy ship slowly make its descent into the docking corridor. Its hull was clean, polished, marked with the blue insignia of the Galactic Council, 12 silver stars surrounding a central eye. It glided through space like it belonged there. But here, in this part of the galaxy, that insignia didn't mean power. It meant intrusion. Admiral. Celine Miles kept her eyes on the screen. Her fingers hovered above the control panel, not touching anything, just close enough to show she could act if she needed to. She didn't blink. Her crew, spread across the vast circular command room, knew better than to break the quiet with questions. They were all veterans of the last 20 years of exile. They'd watched Earth rebuild, seen families torn apart by council raids, and read classified documents that spoke of secret operations and hidden betrayals. They knew better than to trust symbols. A soft voice broke the silence. Their approach is steady. No weapons detected. They've got 1 diplomat, 2 aides, 1 security bot. Celine nodded. Her voice came low. Let them dock. No alarms. No guns. Just watch. The technician hesitated. Ma'am, you sure you want to let them step on board? Celine's eyes never moved. We didn't exile ourselves. Let's see what they think they came here for. Below deck in the observation wing, Keon Langley leaned against a metal beam, listening to the muted echoes of ship systems humming behind the walls. He wasn't supposed to be there. This was a restricted zone. But he found it calming. No loud commands, no drills, just space. He had grown up in the refugee districts of New Nairobi, surrounded by whisper-thin walls, ration packs, and stories of the old Earth his mother used to speak of before the Council took everything. When he was younger, he used to believe the stories were made up. Empires, sky cities, oceans that stretched past the horizon. Now he stood aboard one of the most powerful ships humanity had ever built, watching history knock gently at the door. He pulled the envelope from his coat. He hadn't opened it yet. Something about the woman's tone haunted him. The way she'd looked at him, tired but certain, like she knew something he didn't, like she recognized him even though they'd never met. It didn't make sense. He turned it over again slowly, feeling the slight bump of something inside. A card? A chip? He was about to break the seal when a voice came through the comm. Langley, report to Deck 6 immediately. They've arrived. Keon slipped the envelope back into his coat, heart thumping harder than it should. He hadn't been briefed about the arrival. Why now? The docking corridor hissed open with a slow exhale of pressure. The diplomat, Tazar Ven, stepped through. First, he stood tall, dressed in silver and teal, eyes scanning every corner of the space with cold calculation. His aides followed closely, both humanoid, their movements tight and cautious. Behind them hovered the security bot, silent, armed, and already scanning faces for potential threats. Tazar was unimpressed by the human greeting party, or lack thereof. Just one officer met him at the entrance. No welcoming ceremony, no formal honors, no flags. This is how you greet a representative of the Council? Tazar asked, his voice sharp, clipped. The human officer, Commander Ren Adebayo, didn't smile. You're not on Council territory, Ambassador. Tazar's eyes narrowed. We're here on peaceful terms. Peace doesn't carry the same meaning in every language. They walked in silence down the corridor, boots echoing lightly. The walls were different from council ships, grittier, darker, stronger. Not built for beauty, but survival. Everything screamed resilience. Tazar took mental notes. Back in the control center, Celine watched the live feed. She could see Tazar's eyes moving too quickly, scanning everything, measuring. He was calculating power. That's what the council always did. Measured others like they were problems to solve or resources to exploit. She leaned back in her chair, thinking not about him, but about what message he might be carrying. Was this a peace offering or a threat? She tapped a screen, pulling up restricted intel, past raids, council spy movements, intercepted transmissions. None of them made sense yet, but the timing was too perfect. Across the ship, Jordan sat on the transport vessel's lower deck, staring out the side window. Stars rushed past, endless, quiet. He was supposed to have reached Outpost 47 for his new civilian job, but after the ship got rerouted, they'd been in holding for hours. He hadn't seen the woman again. She'd disappeared into the forward cabin, escorted by a man in black. He finally took out the envelope. No name, just a small black seal. He broke it open slowly. Inside was a single card, matte black with gold lettering on one side. Dread, you've been watched, protected. When the time comes, remember, don't run. On the back, a signature, faded but clear, AM. He blinked. AM? His hands shook a little. Was it a code? A name? He'd never seen anything like it. Why him? He looked around. No one seemed to be watching. Still, he quickly folded the card back inside the envelope and tucked it deep in his jacket. Something about the words felt like a warning, or a command. He didn't know that 3 decks above him, a silent probe had already flagged his presence to the Dominion's Internal Signals Division. His face had shown up on their watch list 2 days ago, not because of anything he'd done, but because of something buried deep in his bloodline, a secret tied to the earliest days of Earth's exile. A secret only a few still remembered. And the woman who gave him the note? She wasn't who she seemed either. Back in the human command center, Celine stood slowly, her voice calm. Have Tazar brought to the conference hall. No weapons, no armor. Ma'am, what if he refuses? He won't. As her officers moved to obey, she allowed herself a rare moment of stillness. She remembered her father, General Miles, who died during the last orbital skirmish with Council enforcers when she was 17. She remembered holding the communicator, listening to his final words. They think they've ended us, but we were just beginning. The Council thought humanity would fade, scattered and bitter, but the truth was far more dangerous. They had forged themselves in exile, and now for the first time in decades, they would speak face to face. But no one, not Tazar, not Jordan, not even Celine, knew just how deep the ties went, or how far. The Council had gone to bury the past, because somewhere out there a buried artifact was waking up, and when it did, nothing in the galaxy would be the same. Jordan sat in the mess hall, hands wrapped around a steaming cup of synth coffee that barely masked the tremble in his fingers. The envelope still burned in his jacket pocket, like it knew he was trying to ignore it. His thoughts kept circling. That single line, you've been watched, protected. When the time comes, remember, don't run. He stared at the dark liquid in the cup but couldn't drink. The voices around him faded in and out. A group of engineers laughed near the back table. A couple of medics argued over duty shifts. Everything felt normal, yet off, like the moment before a storm. The note wasn't just strange, it was personal. Too personal. And he couldn't stop thinking about that woman. The tired eyes, the calm voice. She had said it like it wasn't just a warning, like it was a reminder. Across the ship, buried deep in a lower deck where even officers didn't walk without clearance, a room lit up with pale blue light. Thin lines ran across the floor like veins, pulsing slowly. Inside the chamber, a pod began to stir. The shape within it shifted. A humanoid figure, unmoving but alive. It had been locked away for years under a code no one spoke aloud. The inscription on the pod's frame was barely visible now. It read, Archangel Prototype. Restricted access. Alpha origin bloodline only. In the command conference hall, Tazar Ven stood calmly, his eyes scanning every detail of the room. There were no flags, no council symbols, just black metal walls and an unmarked table. He didn't sit. Celine Miles entered moments later, not in dress uniform, but in combat wear, sleeves rolled, boots dusty. She didn't speak right away. She studied him like a doctor examining a virus under glass. You've grown, Tazar said first, tilting his head slightly. Your father would have been proud. Celine didn't smile. You knew my father? I knew of him. Everyone. Council security did. He made sure of it. She finally moved, stepping around the table. Then you also knew how he died, protecting a research team your fleet tried to wipe out. That was a long time ago. Not for us. Tazar straightened, folding his hands behind his back. We're not here to fight old wars. Celine leaned on the table. But you came here. After all these years, that means something went wrong. Tazar's eyes flicked to the corner of the room where a silent monitor blinked. You're correct. Something has changed, something dangerous. She waited. He exhaled. 3 weeks ago, we lost contact with one of our deep core archives, buried in the shadow region of the Eta Prime system. Nothing on the record should have survived. But something did. A transmission. Fragmented, encrypted in an old Earth-based dialect. And it had one name in the signature line. Celine stared at him. Whose? Langley. The room went still. Keon Langley, Tazar said slowly. That's the name. We traced the source. He's aboard this vessel. Celine didn't answer right away. She could hear the humming beneath the walls, the low vibration of a ship's mind thinking hard. Her eyes narrowed. You think this boy, what, activated something? I don't. Think. I know, Tazar said. We believe he's a carrier. His lineage connects back to the Alpha origin research that your people hid during the exile. You mean the Council stole and then tried to destroy? He didn't argue. Either way, something woke up when he boarded, and if we don't control it, others will. Celine stood tall now. Her voice dropped. Others? Tazar nodded. There are rogue elements, not just in your colonies, even within the Council itself. Splinters, hidden factions. There are those who believe Earth should never have been exiled, and others who want to erase all memory of it. Whatever woke up in that archive, it's a weapon, or worse. At that moment, deep within the ship's systems, the command AI began a quiet process. It reran Langley's profile, rechecked his blood work, accessed files buried beneath military encryption. The AI paused, flagged something, and unlocked. A message recorded 17 years ago. A voice played, quiet and distorted. This child must never be told, but when the key activates, he'll need protection and answers. Whatever happens, don't let him run. Meanwhile, Keon was in the med bay, being scanned for a minor injury he barely remembered getting. The nurse, a short woman with streaks of silver in her hair, smiled gently as she worked, but he noticed how her eyes kept drifting to the monitor, and how her fingers trembled just slightly as she held the scanner to his neck. Something wrong? He asked. She smiled wider, too wide. Just a little unexpected. Keon frowned. What is? Before she could answer, the door opened and 2 armed officers stepped in. Their faces were blank. One spoke calmly. Langley, you're being escorted to Deck 9 by order of Admiral Miles. For what? Protocol shift. No cause for alarm. But Keon felt the alarm rise anyway. They didn't touch him, didn't raise weapons. But the silence said more than words. Something had changed. And now, people were watching him too closely. As they walked through the ship, he noticed crew members stepping aside, whispering. A few stared. One technician backed away entirely, like he was dangerous. Keon's heart pounded. He didn't understand any of it. He had always felt a little out of place, a little disconnected, but not like this. And in a small maintenance bay 2 decks below, a man who hadn't used his real name in 20 years watched it all unfold from a cracked screen. He wore a dirty mechanic's coat, his face half shadowed by a welding visor, but his eyes were sharp. He saw Keon being escorted and leaned back in his chair, whispering, "So it begins." He reached behind him and pulled out a small, sealed case. Inside was an ancient piece of tech, carbon black, ringed in silver, with a single glowing light in its center. It pulsed once, sensing something familiar nearby. The man grinned faintly. They finally found the boy. Still, no one, not Celine, not Tazar, not even Keon himself, understood what the message from Eta Prime had truly said. The fragments hadn't fully decrypted yet, but one phrase was already clear. The Empire has returned, and someone, or something, was calling it home. Keon sat in the dimly lit chamber on Deck 9, surrounded by walls humming with unseen power. He could feel it under his skin now, a strange pulse, like the ship itself was waiting for him to do something. The 2 officers who brought him there hadn't said another word. They locked the door and left him alone without explanation. And that note, the one the woman had given him back on the transport, kept echoing in his mind. "You've been watched, protected. When the time comes, remember, don't run." The silence was thick, and then the door hissed open. Celine Miles stepped in. Her eyes were sharper than before, but there was something different now. Not suspicion, not fear, a kind of urgency. "Sit tight," she said. "You're not under arrest, but you are important." Keon frowned. "Important how? I'm just a cadet, a nobody." "Not anymore," she said quietly and waved her hand. The lights dimmed further and a display lit up beside them. Lines of data scrolled fast. Old Earth codes, council symbols, bioscans. His own name flashed in red. "I don't understand what any of this means," he said, voice unsteady. She turned to him. "You're a carrier, Keon. Your bloodline is tied to something the council thought they buried centuries ago. A weapon, a memory, maybe both." His mouth went dry. "I don't have powers. I'm not special." "You are," she said. "Not because you asked for it, but because someone made sure you'd survive long enough to wake it up." Keon stood. "Wake what up?" Before she could answer, the wall screen blinked to static, then flickered. A new voice came through, rough, static-wrapped, and deep. "Langley has been located. Repeat. Langley is aboard the Odyssey. Deploying now. Celine." Swore under her breath. She hit a button, but the signal was already gone. "What was that?" Keon asked. She turned to him fast. "They're coming, rogue council ships, not just spies, extermination squads. They know what you carry, and they'll erase this entire ship if they have to." Keon's heart slammed against his chest. "Why? Me? I don't even know what they want. They want what's inside you, a code, a memory file, something that only unlocks with your DNA. It's buried in your cells, Keon. You were born with it." He backed away, shaking his head. "This is insane. I grew up in the back of a food station on Colony 12. My mom was a cleaner. My dad, he left when I was 6. Nobody in my life was a part of anything important." Celine stared at him. "You think that was an accident?" Then the lights in the chamber flickered, and the room shook. A low alarm began to pulse through the ship. Celine pressed a comm on her wrist. "Status!" A voice crackled through. 3 ships just jumped in from dark space. No transponders, no council markings. They're running cold and arming weapons. Celine's jaw tensed. She looked at Keon. "We don't have time to explain everything. Just listen to me. You need to come with me now." He hesitated. "If you don't," she said, "this ship dies, everyone on it. You have something they'll kill thousands to destroy. That makes you a threat. But it also means you have a choice. Run or fight." Keon looked down at his hands. They weren't shaking anymore. Something inside him had shifted. He didn't know what it was, but it was there. "I'm not running," he said. She gave a short nod. "Good." They rushed down the corridor as the ship's lights shifted to red alert. All around them, crew scrambled into position. Sirens wailed. Defense grids powered up. But something was wrong. Too fast, too precise. The enemy had known exactly where to find them. As they rounded the next bend, a loud crack echoed. Ahead. A section of the hull trembled, and then exploded inward. Fire and pressure vented violently before emergency barriers slammed shut. From the smoke, armored figures stepped onto the deck, sleek black suits with no insignias. Their weapons were silent, but deadly. One of them raised a scanner and its light locked onto Keon's chest. Celine shoved him back. "Move!" Keon's legs pumped hard, heart hammering. But behind them, the black-suited agents moved like shadows, fast, coordinated, unstoppable. Suddenly, from a side hatch, a hand reached out and grabbed Keon, yanking him into a maintenance tunnel. Celine followed, gun raised, covering the door. Inside the narrow corridor stood the old mechanic Keon had seen around the lower decks. But his eyes weren't tired now. They were alert, focused. He pulled off the visor and handed Keon the black ring-like device from earlier. "Time's up," the man said. "You're not ready, but it doesn't matter anymore. This belongs to you." Keon stared at it. "What is it?" The man stepped close. "It's a key, not to a door, to a memory." Before Keon could answer, the device flared. Recognizing him, the light pulsed and Keon's vision blurred. He was standing in another room, another time. Images rushed through his mind. Cities on Earth burning under sky fire. Humans fleeing to the stars. A group of scientists huddled in a deep vault whispering about Project Archangel. One woman, his mother, crying as she held a newborn baby. Keon. He gasped and fell to his knees. Celine caught him. "It's just the first layer," she said. "The deeper you go, the more you'll remember." Keon looked up. "Why me?" The old man knelt beside him. "Because your ancestors didn't just escape exile. They built something greater than anyone imagined. And they hid the map. Inside. The ship shook again. Explosions roared overhead. A voice crackled through the emergency speakers, panicked, desperate. "They're inside engineering. We're losing control of the core. They're trying to take us down from the inside." Keon stood. He wasn't trembling now. "They're not taking anything," he said. The black-suited enemies were closing in. Systems across the ship were failing. Lives were being lost every second, and somewhere buried in the layers of Keon's mind was a secret powerful enough to rebuild everything humanity had lost, or destroy what little was left. But time was running out.